Break Even podcast. Can you tell me a bit about your gambling story and when you started gambling, etc.?
So my gambling started literally after I went to university in 2009. It literally started off as something like Hyde with a couple of friends. And what started off with a few bets on the blackjack table, turning 20 quid into 60 quid, became the downward spiral. And literally after that, I was winning a lot of money. Then it became casinos, bookmakers, then became Vegas in your pocket. So for me, I was gambling for 12 years until my wife found out in the pandemic.
So how much at your height, you said you started off like 20 quid. In your height, how much were you gambling? What sort of debt did that lead to?
So in the height of it, I was doing £1,000, £2,000 bets. You know, the most I've ever won on one bet is 10 grand on the nose of a horse.
Right.
The most I've ever lost in one sitting was 9,000. And out of all of that, I accumulate £250,000 in debt.
So when you say you lost this sort of money, did you really have that sort of money to gamble with, or was there ways you found of getting it?
Great question. So yes, I was always good. I had great jobs, but that wasn't enough. But
Yeah.
I found ways of borrowing, begging, stealing, and even defrauding to fund my habit.
So tell me a bit about some of the stealing and defrauding you did.
So, not that I'm happy about it
Yeah,
or
sure.
I'm proud about it, but one of the things I did do, I was able to manipulate my parents. You know, I was being South Asian and sort of knowing where their weak points, I was able to use them. And it's a weird one because I could do it in such a way where I can make them lend me money, but make them feel bad if they didn't lend me money. So I was a great manipulator.
So you was using emotional blackmail, which
100%.
a lot of gamblers do.
Yeah, the other context of it, it's with friends. So I would ask friends for money, make them manipulate them, make them feel bad about it, but deep down I knew I wouldn't be able to pay them back. So I'm not only just asking for money from friends, but I'm also potentially destroying relationships, and I was okay with that.
We obviously realised you had a problem early on, but when did you really accept it was a problem and you might have to do something about it? What sort of, any instance that led to, you really coming out and turning your life around like you have now?
Well, 16th June 2020 was D-Day for me. And I think all that secrecy, because they talk about this compulsive gambler, right? But what they don't talk about is that compulsive lying. So I think the secrecies of the lies, the money, and I think my wife had an intuition, where's the money going? Well, we're not going out, we're not booking holidays, we're not booking meals. So all these little things like little debt letters and bailiff letters. So she had accessed my Monzo account, which was one I hid in secret.
Yeah.
And there it was in black and white. Transactions after transactions after transactions. Not talking hundreds, we're talking thousands, to tunes of 10,000s. So that really was the point where everything changed because...
So before she outed you and she found your Monzo account, did you accept it was a problem, or did you believe that irrational thought pattern that a lot of gamblers have, that you could get out of it?
Genuinely, I think you hit the nail on the head. I thought I could get out of it because I was in so deep. I didn't want to believe I had a problem. I wanted to basically make sure the problem went away, and the only way that I could do that is to maybe win big.
Yeah.
And that was the chase I was going after. So the delusion part thinking was that at some point, sometime, I'm going to hit that jackpot. But jackpot never came.
So a question, I don't know if you've been asked this before, but you say 16th of June was obviously the date where your wife found out about your Monzo account, etc., etc. Had she not have found out, do you think you would have accepted you had a problem and come out, or is that a difficult question to answer?
I don't think it's a difficult question, but I think it's one of those ones you could always say, what if, right, in hindsight. But if I was in that still state of mind, and if that didn't happen, I believe in my heart that I would have still carried on. And I think it would have been much worse. I think there would have been a point where my wife would have left me. I had children at the time, houses, the debt. Who knows? I would have been homeless or even far worse off.
So that must have been one hell of a day for you.
Yeah.
Try and explain to me some of your feelings when you were outed and when you knew everything had happened and it hit the fan, basically.
So there's something which is in the South Asian culture, which is sharam, which means shame. And it's a big thing because there's this big fear at, what if my family find out? What if the people don't talk to me? What if society finds out? And truth of it, I think that's what also
So with you, with the sharam, it's more than what it is with some gamblers that aren't from the Asian community. they had the shame and they were scared about being found out. But for you, it was a lot more than just being found out and not being able to do it.
Yeah, because there's this societal pressure, which is you have to be this type of person, this type of job, this type of pay, this type of family, and if you're not, you're quote unquote a failure. And there's all these other little things that we grow up and we hear, which is Banda Banaja, which means be a man or become a man. Or if you did something wrong, the famous line is Loki ki gange, which is what will other people say? So we've been ingrained into that thought. So for me, I thought if anyone found out about this addiction, what will they say? Will people stop talking to me? And I was a huge people pleaser because that's what validated me. And I was always that person where anyone that would see me, they go, he's done a great job, he's doing fantastically well, he's got a wife, he's got kids, brilliant.
But nobody knew what was going on behind
But I
that.
chose for no one to know what was going on because I feared the backlash of the sharam, right? And I knew that if anyone found out, parents, my in-laws, or anyone in my network or that community, and I would rather keep myself suffering in silence because no one. I've heard about drugs and gambling, right?
Yeah.
And there's always these cases, and you've always had people around you, whether it's family members. But gambling was so isolated. I heard about no one, no family members, no friends, no one that had a problem or that talked about that problem.
So you're confronted by your wife, and then what happened?
Pretty much pack your bags, get out. That's what it was like. And the truth was, Ian, is that I'd been chasing the jackpot for so long, not realising my family is my jackpot, my home is my jackpot.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in my bed, and there's a moment where I was with my son Jeevan, which means life, and there was a reason we picked that name. And I sort of clung on to him, crying and bawling my all out because I thought this is the last time I want to see him because she said you're gone. But one thing I don't really talk about enough is the person behind my wife that helped me. And this is very unheard of in the South Asian culture. So my father-in-law, religious man, my wife could be isolated with my in-laws. He turned around to his daughter and said, park the disease to one side. He's actually a nice guy.
Wow.
So let's help him. And when I mean this is unheard of in the South Asian culture, it is unheard of.
Yeah.
How many in-laws would we know that would, even within any other cultures, how many in-laws would say, well, that's that person, he's put you in 250k
Especially what you've done to his daughter, etc.
Exactly.
etc.
And so for me to face that as well, and I didn't know about that until way after, but it was actually him that was a catapult and the person that helped me in my journey. Actually, my in-laws and their side of the family helped me much more than my own side of the family.
So talk about your journey once you were outed, for lack of a better word. What did that journey then look like? Where did you get support? Was it easy to access support?
I found it very hard to access support, if I'm honest with you, because my first thought was, who do I ask? So do I ask my parents? Do I ask my brothers? Do I ask my friends? Well, half these people have tarnished that relationship, right, with the begging, borrowing, stealing. So part of that becomes, well, the shame and the guilt kicks in. So I'm not going to ask them. So I went to my local temple and I said, look, remember, I had to call them. I was like, this is what's going on. And I felt more judged by them. And bear in mind, we've been grown up to go, right, if you have a problem, speak to your temple.
So you went there all full of faith, hoping that they would help you and support you, and exactly the opposite happened.
Came off that call feeling more judged than ever before. And that's because maybe they didn't understand. They know about drugs and alcohol, but gambling is still such a taboo topic and not much in there. So where I started getting help is I just had to Google online. For
you, that must have been a horrible feeling. You've gone to where you think you're going to get your main support within your own community, and they ignored you basically.
I felt isolated, and I felt more abandoned than I did before. So we talk about how we emotionally feel.
Yeah.
So like you said, you're now trying to pull your heart out to someone, and then it's almost that rejection feeling, and no one likes to feel rejected. So, but my wife said to me, she goes, if we're going to work together and we're going to stay together, you're going to have to get professional help. So I knew that I had a whip behind me, which is my wife. So the only thing that I could do was just Google, and I just typed in something like gambling help, and I think a couple of sites popped up. I think NHS was one of them. So I started my recovery with NHS, but the NHS caused me on a darkwood spiral, and that's because they were trying to treat a problem without understanding the person.
Through all this, journey that you described, did you ever thoughts of taking your own life?
the downward spiral of the darkness is what I'm talking about.
Right.
So when I was with NHS, I was going on that CBT journey, I was going on that therapy journey, thinking I was getting better, and I'm trying to make sure my wife's looking at me going, oh, he's doing the therapy.
Yeah, look how well he's doing.
Yeah, like, you know, he's taking the necessary steps, but the truth is, I was just going further down a darker hole. I was going more into loneliness, more into abandonment. But you know what? No one really talks about the internal dialogue. I think, especially with men, how much pressure and shame we put on ourselves. Like the things we say to ourselves in our own thoughts are some of the things that we wouldn't even say to our worst enemies. But we're happy to say it to ourselves. Like the way we talk and just put ourselves into such a derogatory place. I just kept doing that over and over and over. And 18th of August 2020, I was on the M1 coming back from Nottingham near Leicester Services, and I saw what it would take at the 250k debt, build a trust with my wife, feeling like a failure to my children, feeling like the people I let down, and then what society would think of me, especially from the South Asian community, because there's such a high pressure on that. The easiest way to do it was to take my own life. And on 18th of August 2020, I tried to put my car into central reserve on the M1, hoping that I wouldn't wake up. Fortunately, life, God, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, had other plans for me. So I'm sitting here with a bigger purpose.
That must have been such a difficult time for you, for your family. Fortunately, and as you say, thank God, spiritually, whatever the reason is, you're now sitting here.
Yeah.
And you've made a remarkable recovery. You've spoken a bit about the South Asian community. We know there's a lot of shame and stigma around gambling. What do you think can be done now? And tell us a bit about what you are doing now with Breaking the Sharam and how you see the way forward.
So the biggest thing that I found when I've been sharing about my story, so 5th of October 21, I went out there and said, I'm Harj, this is my story. So when they heard that, it was the first time I think a lot of people from our community going, well, we didn't even think this was a problem. And there are still some delusional and in denial people in the community, especially people of faith, where I think they need the biggest education, where they think that it doesn't happen.
For those that don't know, is gambling allowed within your religion?
No. So it's sin-like. So drinking isn't allowed in our religion. Smoking, drugs,
Yeah, I think a lot of people
alcohol.
are aware of that, but I'm not sure how many people are aware that gambling is a taboo.
It's the thing of temptation.
Right.
So there's a whole, so whether you're Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, wherever it is, the temptation is what they call the devil on your back. And so you should not do that. And it's almost a sinful like. So not only is it not just taboo, not only is it just massive stigmas, but the sinful like makes it hard for people. So I think for people to go, well, hold on, Harj is a recovering gambling addict. He's openly sharing his story. I mean, you've heard some of my stuff, and I openly share about all aspects of it. So for them, the biggest thing now is that I'm using a platform where I'm not using it to do like TikTok dances. I'm using it to educate people on what is happening in society. So for me, when I'll tell you what happened, I didn't know it was going to be a thing until the first person said, this is me, can you help me? So you asked me what I'm doing, is I'm going out there, sharing my story, hoping to be a voice for those suffering in silence, so they can see there's representation, there's relatability, there's someone that understands our community. To treat a problem, you must understand the person, because there's cultural differences, language differences, societal differences, even religious differences. So when they see me talking about it, they're more likely to reach out and ask for help. So last year we helped about nearly 100 people.
Fantastic.
Not just people with the gambling, but the affected, remember the affected others, because that's a big part of this journey. So for me, Breaking the Sharam is an avenue where people can not only feel inspired by the journeys of the likes of Harj's, but there's also an outlet for them to go, right, what's the next step? How do I get help? Whether it's my son, my husband, my wife, but also the affected others. What can you do where you understand us that's going to give us the place of rebuilding our lives?
Now you're working on the Mobilising Local Systems project, with the Breaking the Sharam project. Just tell me a little bit more about the actual work you're doing within the project.
So the very simplest way of putting it is, going back to what I said before, is educating people from the community. And that's done through running like 60 to 90 minute workshops. It's really engaging. It allows you to see the signs of gambling related harm in South Asian and ethnic minorities or marginalised communities. And the great thing with this, compared to any other type of awareness workshop, is actually delivered by people with lived experience like myself. So not only do you get to see the signs, you get to see, you know, what you can do differently, how you can support someone. Because the truth is, there are some fantastic people out there doing some fantastic work, but they don't have the tools and the resources. So if we can educate them through these 60, 90-minute workshops, whether it's in person or online, now they have the tools and resources to be people that can help the vulnerable people that they're working with. So that's what Breaking the Sharam is. It's about raising not just the counselling and signposting people for the right support, but it's also educating those key staff workers, those frontline workers, or people from that community to say, this is a problem, here are the signs, and here's what you can do.
So that's fantastic. So we're on a massive awareness programme, and we really want people to become aware of gambling-related harms within your communities. And you know, please contact us if you want to get involved.
Yeah, and there's no. I know the UK is a small place, but there's no place where we can't reach, especially with the power of internet and technology. So if you're watching this and they want to know a bit more about Breaking the Sharam project and how we can support them, definitely reach out.
I'm really delighted, Harj, and you know, thank you very much for sharing that really powerful story. I'm delighted that you're now a member of the Break Even team, helping with this project. What would you say to people listening to this? Because what we hope is people listening to this will pick up the phone, will realise there is help and support, try and get through the sharam, as you say. What would your advice be to those people that are listening to this podcast that for the first time are realising there might be someone they can talk to or get help from? What would your advice be?
So if you're from the South Asian community, there's a word called izzat, which means honour. There is no honour in suffering in silence. The best thing you can do is to ask for help, because you're not alone. There's people out here that have been where you are right now, that have come out the other end, and that can help you through that process and hand-holding you. So if you're watching this and anything that is connected with you, whether it's you, a family member, do the bold, courageous thing, which is ask for help, because there's strength in your vulnerability, not weakness. So Breaking the Sharam is to break down the stigmas and rebuild lives. And hopefully, by listening to Ian and myself, this can help you rebuild your life too.
Harj, thanks for getting that message out there, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure with you, Ian.
If you or someone you know is affected by gambling-related harm, please call us on 01273 833 722 or visit our website www.breakeven.org.uk. Alternatively, please call the National Gambling Helpline on 0808 8020 133. Please ensure to like and subscribe to all our social media channels and keep this message out there. Thank you.